This story is hard to believe, but it is true. Imagine Kenya under colonial rule. Do you expect a white person to do anything that would find them on the wrong side of the law? Even that by a white jury. That is what happened. The date was 10th December 1959. Kamawe Musunge was employed by Peter Richard Poole as a houseboy at his home in Nairobi along the then Gordon Road. Kamawe was riding his bicycle when he was attacked by two of Poole's dogs. Kamawe tried to chase them off by throwing stones at them, but Poole treasured his dogs more than his houseboy, so he shot him dead with his Luger pistol. He was arrested after a while, charged with the murder of Kamawe and tried. At the time, trials were conducted by a jury, not by a single presiding judge or magistrate, as is the case in Kenya today. For those who don't know, a jury is a group of people who listen to evidence and decide on a verdict in a criminal or civil case, normally 12 in number. The first trial ended in a hung jury where one of the jurors said he could not fathom convicting a white person for the murder of a black, a Kenyan. A second jury was selected, all white, and the jury convicted Poole, and the presiding white judge imposed the death sentence as provided by law. Poole had a history of violence and violent incidents. He once drew his gun and threatened an Asian shopkeeper for refusing to give him a discount on a flashlight in Nairobi. Another incident is when he shot a plainclothes African police officer in the legs. Coincidentally, this officer had also been defending himself from Poole's dogs. Poole appealed the conviction and sentence to the now defunct East African Court of Appeal, which dismissed the appeal, and he was executed after the colonial governor Patrick Moy-Renison and colonial secretary Ian MacLeod both declined to commute the sentence. Poole was hanged at Committee Maximum Prison in Nairobi at 8 a.m. on 18th August 1960. His body was buried in an unmarked grave within Committee. Before I continue, this was not the only case of a British citizen being executed in the colonies. Not even Kenya, but they were few and far in between. Poole had emigrated to Kenya from Essex in England in 1953, after which he immediately joined the Kenya Police Reserves to fight the Mau Mau during the Mau Mau Rebellion. Poole's parents and other white settlers in Kenya tried to get other Kenyans to sign a petition requesting clemency, but independence was just around the corner and they refused to sign, according to the late Tomboya. Robert Ruark, a notable author and hunter from the time, said that Poole was part of a greater problem, and I quote from his book: Kenya has always had a reputation for what the British call bad hats, bad people, unprincipled freebooters, unruly younger sons, and to characters of various shadings, i.e., people that are not wanted in England. But one way or another, they got almost happily accustomed to killing, justly in some cases, callously in most, and in many instances for sheer sport. The nature of the Mau Mau and its practices were not such as to encourage either tenderness or discrimination. Peter Poole was one of the many who considered that if a man was black, he was a nigger. If he was a nigger, he was likely to be guilty of something, and it was easier to shoot him than argue with him. End quote. Back in England at the time, Poole would have been a nobody, so he came to Kenya to be somebody to show his might and power above other humans who are colored. This wasn't the only case of a British killing a Kenyan, but this this case ended up with a guilty verdict because the jurors knew that independence was round the corner and that if they didn't convict Poole, there would be a greater uprising and all the white settlers in East Africa and probably across the whole of the British Empire would lose property along with their lives. On one side, this case shows that the British colonizers tried to be fair, but only when it suited them, because hundreds, if not thousands, of local people, like Indians, Africans, Asians, were killed by them in much more gruesome ways, like being burnt alive. Finally, I'd like to quote from an article from the London Spectre, which wrote the following about the incident. It is a savage irony that future generations in Kenya will be able to point to 1960 as the year when the equality of the races was finally demonstrated, not by granting of rights to Africans to farm on the white highlands or to become members of white clubs, but the proposition that all men, regardless of color, are equal on the end of the rope. If you have enjoyed this video, I hope you have. I shall be making more about other instances in the near future. I request you to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.